If you feel like you've already tried everything and you're still stuck in the same life, pay attention. The problem was never the technique. It was never reconfiguring the system behind the block. I spent my entire life facing this, and in just a few minutes I'm going to hand you what cost me decades. Before we really get into this, let me ask you for one quick thing. Subscribe to the channel, because here we talk about blocks and money without the fluff. And leave a like, because that helps this content reach more people who are stuck in this too. Have you ever noticed that sometimes it feels like you're driving with the parking brake on? You push and push and the car barely moves. It's not a lack of effort. You try, you move, you chase after it. It's just that the result never matches the size of the effort you put in. And the worst part is, this isn't the first time. You've taken the course, bought the spreadsheet, finished the 21-day gratitude challenge, felt that initial burst of motivation in the first few days, and within a few weeks, you were back to the same old pattern, as if none of it had really happened. Maybe you've even thought, without ever saying it out loud, that you're just someone who gets stuck, that other people can flow through life and you can't. That's not true, but it's a real feeling, and later on we're going to understand where it comes from. Then there's that extra money that shows up out of nowhere, and before it turns into anything real, it's already gone, swallowed by some unexpected expense. A bill you weren't expecting, a cost that comes out of nowhere, a repair, a late payment. As if life always finds a way to send you right back to the same starting point. Here's what nobody ever told you. Maybe the problem was never the technique you used. Maybe it's something that no single technique can fix on its own. And almost everyone who lives with this tries to solve it the same way. But that approach, as we're about to see, is exactly where the real mistake begins. The problem is that most people confuse two very different things: relieving discomfort and actually resolving the block. You watch a motivational video, feel that spike of energy, your chest feels lighter for a few hours, and within 3 days, you're right back in the same old state. So you switch techniques, trying to figure out which one is the right fit for you. This week it's scripting, next week it's prayer, then it's guided meditation. Each one promises to be the definitive answer. Deep down, that's not progress, it's you chasing a miracle instead of sustaining real change. Then there's that anxiety of constantly checking whether it's already worked, looking at your bank statement, paying attention to every little sign. Except that constant vigilance reinforces exactly the state of lack you were trying to leave behind. And gratitude, affirmations, they become a kind of emotional makeup layered over the same old identity without ever really touching it. Because the problem was never trying to manifest. It was trying to manifest on top of an identity that's still living in fight mode. But why, even knowing this, do we keep falling into the same mistake year after year? The answer is simpler and more logical than it seems. Inside you, there's a kind of internal algorithm. Every time a new opportunity shows up, that algorithm reaches back for old memories of failure to protect you from feeling that way again. The chance to ask for a raise appears, and before you even open your mouth, a memory of the last time you were ignored is already stepping in front of it. The problem is that this protection isn't rational. It works through a dominant emotion, usually fear or scarcity, that starts coloring your decisions without you consciously noticing it. You think you're choosing with a clear head, but in reality you're choosing through that filter. And there's one more piece to this system your attention gets trained to confirm the same story. If you believe you always get stuck, your brain will, all day long, go looking for evidence that confirms it, and unintentionally ignore everything that contradicts it. Think of a thermostat set to keep a house at a certain temperature. No matter how much heat you pump in, the system always pulls it back to the point it's programmed for. That's exactly what happens with your financial and emotional baseline. That's why you try with everything you've got and still end up back at the same starting point. It's not a lack of effort, it's not a lack of faith. It's a system, belief, emotion, attention, and identity, all working together to keep you exactly where you've always been. And here's the real turning point. If there's a system behind this, It's not luck and it's not fate. It's structure, and structure can be reconfigured. But understanding the mechanism is only half the journey. There's still one piece missing, the one that actually unlocks this system from the inside. And this is exactly where most people get stuck. Understanding the mechanism already changes how you'll see every block from here on out. But understanding isn't the same as reconfiguring. It took me decades of testing path after path to organize this entire process. Belief, emotion, attention, and identity, and I put the complete step-by-step in the ebook. The link is in the description, go check it out. Now, with the mechanism mapped out comes the part you've been waiting for, the solution. So here's the missing piece that finally fits. This method isn't some isolated trick, a magic phrase to repeat in the morning. It works on exactly the same pieces we just mapped out: belief, emotion, attention, and the story you tell yourself about who you are, just pointed in the opposite direction. The real turning point happens when you trade the identity of the constant fighter for the identity of the builder. While you're the fighter, every new challenge becomes just one more piece of proof that you can't handle it. Once you become the builder, that same challenge turns into material. One more link in something you're constructing. This isn't the absence of fear. This isn't the absence of fear. It's building a different emotional baseline, a confidence that doesn't depend on the result having already arrived. You don't need to feel like it's already worked out to feel secure. You build the security first, and the result comes as a consequence of it, not as a condition for it to exist. And along with that, your attention shifts too. It stops guarding the problem and starts looking at the project. Every block that shows up stops being a verdict on who you are and becomes just one more part of something bigger you're building. I didn't arrive at this overnight. It took decades of trying, failing, relapsing, trying again, an entire laboratory running inside my own life, until these 4 pieces settled into something simple enough to explain in just a few minutes. Maybe you're wondering if there's really a way out, or if you're going to stay stuck like this for the rest of your life. There is a way out. And the good news is, you don't need another decade to figure it out. You just needed to see the piece that had been missing all along. But understanding this shift is different from knowing how to apply it in your daily life. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. Now that you understand the problem, the question that remains is, what do I do differently tomorrow morning? The first thing is learning to notice the old story in action. When the thought, "it's always been this way for me," runs through your head, you don't need to judge it or beat yourself up for thinking it. Just notice it. There it is. That's the old voice talking. And keep moving forward without picking a fight with it. From that moment of noticing, the next step is to rewrite that story with a new identity. Every time you're about to describe a difficulty, swap the word block for process. This isn't just an empty figure of speech. It's literally training your brain to interpret that moment as a stage of construction, not as a final verdict on who you are. Alongside that shift in language comes a small attention exercise, practiced every day. Notice the exact moment your body goes into alert mode, that tightness in your chest, that rush to protect yourself in the face of a scarcity trigger, like an unexpected bill or a reply that takes too long to come. And in that instant, consciously choose to respond differently than you always have. And rounding out this process is a more mature form of visualization than most people practice. It's not just imagining the pretty outcome happening. It's feeling inside your own body what it would be like to live without the constant struggle. Your shoulders looser, your breathing deeper, without that underlying tension you've carried for years just from thinking about money. This isn't about memorizing some new technique. It's about changing the language you use with yourself every single day. And doing this right requires knowing one thing. What's normal to feel while this process is still underway? In the first few days, prepare to feel a little strange. A situation will come up that used to set you off. And your body will still expect that same old dramatic reaction, even though something inside you has already shifted. That's normal. It's your body slowing down a habit built over years. You might even feel a strange kind of nostalgia for the fighter identity. It sounds contradictory, but it makes sense. It defined you. It gave you a ready-made explanation for everything that went wrong. Letting go of it, even though it's what you wanted, stirs up a part of you that got used to playing that role. Maybe you're wondering why you still don't see a big result, even after understanding all of this. It's because the first pieces of evidence don't show up as a big result. They show up as a calmer decision, a day without that automatic self-blame, a slightly smaller reaction to the same old trigger. Small, almost invisible, but that's exactly what precedes any bigger change. Think of a ship. A few degrees of course correction don't look like much when you're only looking at the bow right in front of you. But further down the line, those few degrees completely determine the final destination of the voyage. So if you're still seeing challenges show up, that doesn't mean it isn't working. It means you're reorganizing decades of a single pattern. And knowing what to expect, there are still a few common traps that make a lot of people give up too soon. Maybe you're thinking, am I going to mess this up too, the way I've messed up other attempts? That's a fair question. And that's exactly why it's worth knowing the most common mistakes before making any of them. Some people treat this like a mechanical checklist, ticking off the steps without really engaging. Without real emotional presence, it just becomes one more item on the to-do list, and a to-do list item doesn't reconfigure any identity. Others fall into a kind of pressure that shows up right when they've made the most progress. Now that I know this, I can't afford to mess up anymore. That demand recreates the exact same old pressure you were trying to leave behind, just wearing a new outfit. There are also people who give up at the first sign of discomfort, reading that natural resistance as proof that it isn't working. Here, discomfort is a sign of reorganization, not failure. And then there's the most subtle mistake of all. Continuing to narrate your own life as a constant struggle while, at the same time, saying you're changing. That contradiction between what you say and what you actually practice is what gets in the way the most. But if you know these mistakes before you make them, you can correct course along the way instead of giving up. And once you avoid these traps, there's only one thing left. Taking the first real step. Where do I start? Without getting lost again halfway through, start simple. One question asked every day. Which identity is guiding my decision right now? The fighters or the builders? Just that question, answered honestly, already changes the direction of a good part of your choices. Along with it, a micro ritual. When a scarcity trigger shows up a bill, a reply that hasn't come, give yourself a few minutes to pause and breathe before you react. That small gap is where the new identity gets the space to step in before the old identity grabs the wheel again. Also choose one old phrase to retire for good, something like, I always get stuck, and a new phrase to put in its place, one that already speaks from the person you're choosing to become. Repeat that new phrase until it stops sounding strange and starts sounding like you. I spent my entire life facing my own blocks to get to this point, and if there's one thing I've learned, is that one simple first step is worth more than the perfect plan that never leaves the drawing board. You don't have to solve everything today. You just need to stop living like someone condemned to face blocks forever. And if you want to go beyond this first step, there's a deeper path waiting for you. If you've understood by now that what's holding you back isn't a lack of effort, but a fighter identity stuck in an old system, you've already come out of this video different from how you went in. That alone is worth the shift in perspective. But I'm not the only one who has gone through this shift from fighter to builder. The ebook exists because thousands of manifestors who watch this channel have already tested every piece of this process in their own lives. It's not loose theory, it's the same path, tested again and again. Now organize so you don't have to figure it out alone in the dark. Tell me down in the comments, which of these identities has been guiding your decisions so far, the fighters or the builders? I want to read your answer. Subscribe to the channel, because here we talk about the truth behind blocks and money every week. No fluff and no empty talk. And if you know someone who's also stuck in this same cycle, send them this video right now. Sometimes you just need to hear it a different way to finally break free. See you in the next video, Manifestor.